Okay, so when you hear 18th century, what comes to mind? Probably powdered wigs, right? Super formal, kind of stuffy. But when it came to the novel, it was the complete opposite. It was like the Wild West, a total explosion of creativity, where the rules were, well, basically up for grabs. And a few authors weren't just writing new rules, they were lighting the old ones on fire. Today, we're going to meet two of the most important rebels in literary history.
So here's what we've got on tap. First, we'll dive into that rebellious vibe of the time. Then, we'll meet Laurence Sterne, this guy who basically took the novel apart from the inside out. We'll even check out his wild masterpiece, Tristram Shandy. After that, we're going to pivot to Charlotte Lennox, who used her book to totally satirize society. And to wrap it all up, we'll see how these two pioneers left a legacy that, believe it or not, we're still feeling today.
All right, let's set the scene. The novel in the 18th century was this brand new, super exciting art form. But you know how it goes. It was already starting to get a little predictable. You had your clear plots, your moral lessons, your nice, neat, straightforward stories. And our two authors, they looked at all that and basically said, yeah, no thanks, we're going to do something completely different.
So what if a story just didn't have a plot? Like no clear beginning, no real end? Imagine picking up a book where the narrator spends hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of pages just trying to get around to telling the story of his own birth. Sounds kind of crazy, right? Well, this is exactly the kind of question that our first author, Laurence Sterne, was obsessed with. He was all about testing the limits, seeing just how far he could stretch the whole idea of what a story could be.
Laurence Sterne was, for sure, an internal rebel. It wasn't enough for him to just tell a different kind of story. No, he wanted to blow up the very act of storytelling. His whole focus was on the messy, chaotic, and honestly hilarious way our minds actually jump around, not the neat, linear way stories were supposed to be told.
And his secret weapon? It was something called a digressive narrative. And trust me, it is a wild ride. In his novel Tristram Shandy, he'll start to tell you something, but then, whoops, he's off on a tangent about something totally different. An anecdote here, a philosophical rabbit hole there. He'll go on for pages and pages before he even thinks about getting back to the main point. If he gets back to it at all. It's basically storytelling that works exactly like a wandering mind.
And his toolkit for creating this chaos was just brilliant. For starters, he completely threw out the linear timeline. He just jumps all over the place in his narrator's life. He's also constantly breaking the fourth wall, talking directly to you, the reader, about the book you're literally holding in your hands. The main thing to get here is that his goal wasn't to show a series of events, it was to capture the messy, subjective, internal feeling of being alive. He even messed with the physical book itself, using things like blank pages and weird squiggly lines to make a point.
Yeah, this quote really nails his legacy. By zeroing in on one person's jumbled up inner world and treating the plot like a toy to be played with, Sterne blew the doors wide open. He basically proved that a novel didn't have to be about some grand adventure. It could be an adventure inside a single mind.
Okay, so let's see how this all works in his most famous book, The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy Gentleman. Seriously, this book is a masterclass in controlled chaos. The narrator's entire life isn't shaped by heroic acts or big decisions. Nope. It's defined by one absurd, ridiculous accident after another. I mean, just get a load of these. First, at his own birth, the doctor's forceps completely crush his nose. Great start, right? Then, he's accidentally given the name Tristram, which his dad is convinced is the unluckiest name in the entire world. And then, later, as a kid, a window sash falls and causes let's just say a very personal and unfortunate injury. Each one of these is like a cosmic punchline. It's all about Sterne's big idea, that life isn't some grand design. It's just a bunch of random, absurd stuff happening.
So, why does any of this matter almost 300 years later? Well, think about it. Every time you watch a movie like, say, Deadpool, where the character turns and talks right to you, or you read a book that jumps all over the place in its timeline, you are seeing the ghost of Laurence Sterne. He's a direct ancestor of modernist literature and what we now call metafiction. You know, stories that are totally self-aware that they are stories. It's everywhere now, but he was doing it first.
All right, so if Sterne was the internal rebel, the guy breaking the novel from the inside, then our second author, Charlotte Lennox, was the external rebel. She wasn't as worried about how you tell a story. She was way more interested in what stories do to us and to society as a whole.
So, let me introduce you to Arabella. She's the hero of Lennox's big novel, The Female Quixote, and here's her deal.
She's a young woman who's grown up totally isolated, reading nothing but these over-the-top, heroic romance novels. And because of that, she 100% believes that the real world is supposed to work just like her books, full of drama, chivalry, and, well, completely unrealistic rules.
And this is where the book gets so funny. This massive clash between fantasy and reality. In Arabella's head, life is all about dramatic love and epic adventure. But in the real world, it just leads to these hilarious misunderstandings. She'll see a gardener working and be totally convinced he's a secret kidnapper in disguise. A simple boat trip on a lake, to her, it's a dangerous voyage on the high seas. Lennox builds her whole satire in that gap between the fantasy world in Arabella's head and the boring reality all around her.
But this was way more than just a comedy. Through all of Arabella's silly mistakes, Lennox was making a really powerful point. She was questioning the kinds of stories that were being sold to women and asking how that shaped what they expected from life. Her book is all about the need for real education for women, that constant battle between reason and imagination, and the incredible, sometimes damaging power of what society expects from you.
And that's why she's so important. The female Quixote is seen as one of the first major works of feminist literary critique. We talk about media literacy all the time now, but Lennox was way ahead of the curve. She was asking, how do the stories we consume actually shape who we are? Especially, how do they shape the identities of women? I mean, come on, that question is more relevant today than it has ever been.
So there you have it. Two really different authors, two really different game plans. But when you look at them together, you realize they both completely changed the DNA of the novel forever. Let's break it down real simple. Laurence Sterne, with Tristram Shandy, he tore apart the form of the novel, the actual structure of it. And then you have Charlotte Lennox, with the female Quixote, who took on the novel's social impact, what these stories actually do to us out in the real world.
And that, right there, is the big takeaway. They had totally different methods, but they were chasing the exact same goal: to blow up our expectations of what a novel could be and what it could do. They proved a novel didn't have to follow a single formula. It could be a playground for your imagination, a reflection of our own chaotic minds, or even a weapon for social critique.
These authors looked at the rules of their day and just broke them without a second thought. Which kind of leaves us with a pretty cool question, doesn't it? What are the unwritten rules of storytelling today? In our movies, our books, our social media, and who are the rebels out there right now breaking those rules?